Welcome to 9works TV. Now today I'm bringing you a stat-packed comprehensive drill down into Porsche exclusive manufacturer's latest limited production car, the 992 Sport Classic. Okay, get ready for a lot of stats coming your way over the next few minutes. Some bits and pieces about this car have already been released online, but there's a lot of stuff coming up that you won't know. And the reason is the lot of information that I have got here that I'm about to relay to you comes courtesy of Grant Larson, Head of Vehicle and Special Projects within the exclusive department, and also Boris Appenbrink, who is Head of Porsche Exclusive. I was part of a virtual roundtable with these guys around a month or so ago. So a lot of this information is coming straight from the guys that built this car. We're going to split down between body, chassis, interior, as well as numbers, plus a few snippets on the other two cars coming up of this Heritage Design Edition run. Right then, top level, the 992 Sport Classic is the successor to the 997 Sport Classic, of course, from 2009. With the 992 though, this is the second of 4 Heritage Design Edition cars that Porsche Exclusive are going to be releasing. The first one, as I'm sure you can remember, was the Heritage Design Edition Targa 4S. Bit of a mouthful. That was released 2 years ago in the summer of 2020. The Sport Classic is the second Heritage Design Edition car. We've got 2 more to come, but as I say, the Sport Classic is the second Heritage Design Edition car, and it features all of those traits that we have now come to expect from Heritage Design Edition cars. Think gold logos, green dials, a retro badge, and all will have badges from this point forward on the front wings as well. The Targa, the first Heritage Design Edition car, well, that was inspired by an era of the 1950s and 1960s within Porsche. The Sport Classic moves things on a touch to be inspired by, well, essentially the long bonnet era of the 911's history. So that's the 1960s into early 1970s, with particular reference to the 2.7 RS, the pinnacle of long bonnet 911s, as we can see by that pretty unique ducktail design on the 992 Sport Classic. However, moving on to the body of the 992 Sport Classic, well, nothing else of it is Rennsport really. It's actually based on the 992 Turbo S. The 992 Sport Classic adopts the 992 Turbo S's body. Again, it's the very nearly 2 meters wide at the back. Now, what's different about the Sport Classic look is it gets rid of those now customary side air intakes that we see just ahead of the rear arches on 911 turbos. Now, interestingly, I spoke to Grant Larson about this design trait specifically, and he said, well, actually, the 992 turbos don't draw as much air in from those side air intakes as the 991. The majority of it comes from the back of the car. It means the 992 Sport Classic has a completely unique body. The widest 911 turbo body without the side air intakes. There's no other 911 like it. Also on the 992 Sport Classic, it features that double bubble roof profile that debuted on the 997 Sport Classic, and we then saw on later 911 models, including the 991 GT3 RSs. Here, the roof is made of carbon fibre, as is the front bonnet, by the way, and those recesses in the front bonnet are narrower compared to the standard turbo specification. The reason for that is when you're looking at the Sport Classic head on, the profile of those recesses on the bonnet match that of the roof. Now to the colour. A lot of people online so far have wrongly been saying that the 992 takes the 997 Sport Classic grey and has reused it. Incorrect, my friends. What you're seeing here is a brand new colour called Sport Grey Metallic. Again, keen eyes out there will maybe recognise this from the 996 Club Coupe that Grant Larson and co released to the Porsche Club of America about a month or so ago. If you don't want Sport Grey Metallic, there are 3 other colours available for the 992 Sport Classic, including solid black, agate grey and gentian blue. Other design traits on the Sport Classic, which chief designer Grant Larson states have been inspired by the era, include Fuchs centre-locking wheels. That is a first, by the way, and they look incredible in my opinion. Housed within those are Porsche ceramic composite brakes and gloss black calipers. So maximum stopping power to match the maximum performance that this Sport Classic is going to give. That's the body. Let's move on to the power of this thing. This is where it gets most interesting. I said it's a turbo body. Well, actually, this car has the base turbo engine albeit with a few tweaks. So it's a 3.7 litre twin turbocharged flat six, utilising, as all the new 911 turbos do, VTG, variable turbo and geometry. Unlike the new turbos though, which are mated to an 8-speed PDK semi-automatic gearbox, the Sport Classics twin turbocharged flat six is mated to stick shift. We have once again a manual 911 turbo. It's not the 6-speed from the Motorsport Division cars, I might add. It's the 7-speed that people may be most familiar with from the Carrera and GTS ranges. So it's turbocharged, it's manual, it's also rear wheel drive. It's starting to look like the driver's turbo. Maximum power on this thing is 550 horsepower. That means the 992 Sport Classic is the second most powerful manual Porsche 911 of all time, behind the 997 GT2 RS. The Sport Classics engine also boasts 600 Newton meters of maximum torque. Let's have a look at the chassis. You may remember that the 992 turbos had, for the first time, the option of a sport chassis. Well, it's standard spec on the Sport Classic as well. As you might expect with turbos, which really are technological tour de forces, there's a wealth of technology on this car, bookmarked, of course, by a load of Porsche acronyms. PASM is standard on this. PDCC, Dynamic Chassis Control, that is standard as well. Rear axle steering is standard on the Sport Classic, as is PSE, by the way, just relating more to the engine. The sports exhaust, that is stock on the Sport Classic. The most important thing here to get across, and this is something that Boris Appenbrink, again, head of exclusive manufacturer, is really keen to stress, is because the Sport Classic presents a whole new concept of being turbocharged, manual, rear-wheel drive only. All of those systems that I've just mentioned, as well as the actual steering system on the car itself, have all had to be completely recalibrated. There's also a slightly different spring rate on the front axle of the Sport Classic as well. Onto the interior of the Sport Classic, and this again is where we see some lovely design traits from exclusive manufacture. It's a cognac leather with Pepita houndstooth seat centres. It also features wood trim, which is from the 1960s, the earliest era of 911. Most importantly though, to the enthusiast among us, will be bang in the centre of the interior is that 7-speed manual stick shift rather than a PDK. Numbers, numbers, numbers. The most important number is 1,570. That's how many kilograms this car weighs. Incidentally, it's 70 kilos lighter than the 911 Turbo, which weighs in at 1,640 kilos. Now, you may remember the 997 Sport Classic was extremely limited. Only 250 cars were for sale worldwide. With the 992 Sport Classic, you can add 1,000 to that production run. It's a UK price of £204,000, an EU price of €272,000. With production starting in June, the first cars are going to be delivered into Europe in July, with the first Sport Classics reaching North America by November. I want to finish the video, as promised, with a little bit of information just on the other Heritage Design Edition cars. I asked Grant Larson and Boris Appenbrink if any of the 2 remaining Heritage Design Edition cars, which, as I mentioned earlier, should come out by the end of 2023, I think could be a little bit after that. I asked if any of them are going to be motorsport cars, bearing in mind we are soon to come across 50 years of the 911 Rennsport, and there's rumours of an ST as well. The guys at Exclusive said none of the Heritage Design Edition cars will be motorsport derived. What Boris Appenbrink did tell me is the 4 cars, they'll kind of be known really by their interiors. The Targa 4S, that was inspired by the 1950s interiors at Porsche, which was corduroy. The Sport Classic we've just revealed here, well, that had Pepita, that's from the 1960s. The next car is going to have a Pasha interior, inspired by the 1970s. And then the last of the Heritage Design Edition cars is going to have a tartan interior inspired by the 1980s. That is it. That is your ultimate download of the latest Heritage Design Edition 992, the Sport Classic. Please like and subscribe the video. It means when I drop a video, you get to see it first. And we'll see you again soon.